and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV on the radio and television. Also in Birmingham and Brigham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the village of Franklin on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, both of our TV stations, Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. Also on the radio, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff out of Bloomfield Hills, and online today, as always, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link at the top of the home page or on the left of your screen if you're on a mobile phone or some tablets. Also have a small player on our homepage that will also play our live video. And on Facebook, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15, facebook.com/LakesFM. And as always, joining me from her home studio in the city of Keego Harbor, here is Ronnie Dahl.
So Tyler, I'm starting off the day with a very blonde moment.
Uh-oh.
So usually I run the earphones up under my shirt so you don't see it as much, like kind of hanging. And I go to do that. I was like, I just painted my nails.
Oh, no.
So while I'm sitting here, because they were so chipped, I went ahead and did a quick coat of nail polish. That's one of the good things, not being in the office, because if you whip out nail polish in an office, you are quickly the least liked employee, because the smell is so strong.
No, I mean, other than the person that goes right ahead and decides, it's lunchtime, let me throw some fish in the microwave. Yeah, other than that person, yeah, everyone knows. Everyone's looking who's got the nail polish out.
Right. So with that, I'll have to give it a few minutes for it to dry. It's supposed to be that quick drying nail polish, and then I feel like I can get set up. But until then, you're going to see my white cord hanging down.
That's not too bad. I mean, I do the same kind of thing over here too. Usually I will.
You painted your nails?
Yeah, I paint my nails all the time, Ronnie. I'm doing it all throughout the show. Every single break, I chip them. I put the cord from the headphones behind my back here, and then I kind of loop them and put it into my back pocket so the cord's not flying all over the place during the show too. So it's all these things. But sometimes I'm in a little bit of a rush. Put the headphones on, let the cord hang down. Today it would have been fine because I'm wearing a black shirt and these are black headphones for those listening on the radio wanting to visualize this very important information we're giving you.
Hey, so I went to vote yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And I will admit, I completely forgot about it until last night. And I was like, wait, I forgot to vote. So I had just put dinner in the oven. So I called my husband because he was golfing yesterday. And I was like, when are you going to be home? Right. And I was like, okay, you swing by, you vote. And then when you get home, because I didn't want to leave the dinner in the oven,
of course,
without someone here. So then I ran over. And of course, I was like, well, where's my sticker?
Oh, no stickers? Oh, no.
That's why I got them. I want my sticker. And they started laughing. And they're like, we haven't given any out today and no one's requested one, because guess what number I was?
I'm going to guess less than 100.
177.
177. Okay, close enough.
So not a big turnout for the election yesterday. And you kind of feel bad because you have the staff that is there all day and into the evening hours into the polls close for just 170, 80 people. But she did go, wait a minute. And she went into the back and dug out the I voted stickers for me, and then gave me like a whole stack of them.
Well, every time you vote in an online poll, every time somebody asks you to choose between two different items, just put one of those I voted stickers on too. That will help to make up for the now influx of I voted stickers that you have there. Or if you have friends that are like, yeah, I'm not going to vote this time, but I don't want to be stigmatized for not voting, you can go ahead and hand them an I voted sticker and they'll feel better.
Right. But, that's one of the great things when you live in a small community, because, everyone knows everyone. They're used to you coming up. And then, it's kind of social hour afterwards, oh, hey, hi, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And then, you get talking and, but did you see the bond here in West Bloomfield easily did pass yesterday for the West Bloomfield School District.
Yeah, no big surprise on that. This area, the West Bloomfield School District's voting area, tends to be very generous to the school district and pass the orders when needed. I thought I had muted my phone, and now I'm voting myself out of the Smart Tribe this morning, as I now have my own blonde moment. But yeah, it tends to be very supportive in this area of our school district and of our public safety division. So no surprise that the bond issue for the West Bloomfield School District passed with flying colors yesterday.
Yeah, so hey, the other big news that kind of came out yesterday was the new order easing Michigan's mask requirements. It's a little confusing, though, I will say, Tyler. So a mask will generally not be required outdoors in Michigan, and fully vaccinated people who are not experiencing COVID-19 symptoms won't have to wear a mask at indoor residential gatherings under a new order from the State Department of Health and Human Services. So the order was announced late last night. It takes effect starting tomorrow, and it comes after the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention relaxed its guidance for outdoor mask wearing. The new policy marks the most drastic change yet here in the state of Michigan, benefiting fully vaccinated individuals. So under the new policy, which expires May 31st, masks will generally not be required outdoors unless a gathering has 100 or more people, and routine testing for fully vaccinated participants in organized sports will no longer be required if they are asymptomatic. So masks continue to be required, though, for contact sports. They're no longer required outdoors during active practice and competition for non-contact sports. According to the press release, it gets a little confusing here, though, because when we are looking at baseball, softball, sports such as that, outdoors, when the players are in the dugouts, they will have to have a mask on. But then once they get out on the field, they could take their mask off. So the new order also, Tyler, allows for large outdoor events, including festivals, fairs, and golf tournaments, to exceed the current 1,000 person limit, as long as they create and post a safety plan and no more than 20 persons per 1,000 square feet are gathered in any space. And outdoor residential gatherings, by the way, can be larger in some situations. They're generally capped at 50 people. Now, if density does not exceed 20 people per 1,000 square feet of outdoor space, up to 300 people can be gathered, which we know we're going into graduation season. So this is welcome news for a lot of the graduates, and also going into the summer months for people holding weddings. It's still confusing, though. I read through the order. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, even just reading this summary, my initial reaction is, I'm seeing this, and look, it's good news. We're having some of these mask orders be relaxed or be lifted under certain circumstances for those that are vaccinated or for those that are within the vaccination process, and because we're starting to get closer to that herd immunity point, and inch toward it, but getting toward it, and so things are starting to slowly but surely get back to some semblance of normalcy. That being said, this is a really these are kind of confusing just on their basis, and on top of that, it all goes back once again to enforcement of these rules. Who is going to be on site measuring if there are, let's see here, 20 persons per 1,000 square feet, if that's being exceeded, or if they're able to have less than 20 people or up to 20 people per 1,000 square feet of outdoor space, and up to 300 people possible in that situation. Who is measuring that? Who is enforcing that? Who is making sure that they're within those guidelines? Anybody can post rules up, but the rules don't really matter if nobody is paying attention to them in those situations. So kind of confusing. Good news generally, but confusing, and I think it's going to be tough to enforce this stuff.
It really is, but we already know really the strictest enforcement for so many of the restaurants and the businesses have come through MIOSHA.
Yes.
And they really have not, as of the last 2 or 3 months, they have not been very strict with some of these companies and these businesses are issuing citations right now rather than trying to ding them and taking away their operating license or their liquor license. But also, it's not to exceed 20 people per 1,000 square feet, but still you may have the space, but we know what people do.
Right.
they gather and, they talk to one another, they get into groups. So I may have that much space available. It doesn't necessarily mean people are going to be like, what do you do? Put a pod, in the grass, spray. Okay, here's 1,000 square feet, only 20 people in this block, 20 people in this block, 20 people in this block.
Right,
It's confusing.
right. We're going to create a
but
maze out of all of our local spaces so we can easily enforce this. I don't think that's realistic.
No.
It's
So
ridiculous.
with that though, for people who do want to read this for themselves, it's on the state of Michigan's website, and you can find a direct link to the state of Michigan if you just go to civiccentertv.com. Hey, so the state of Michigan though continues to lead the nation in new COVID-19 cases, but new infections and hospitalizations have fallen sharply in the last 2 weeks following the state's third surge that began in late March. So some good news there. So on Tuesday, Michigan added 2,500 new cases, 126 new deaths. And we should point out, when they're listing the deaths, they're not necessarily new. They're doing they usually will post an asterisk. It says vital records review. So we don't know how far back these deaths go or where they were or who they were, because they're not releasing that information. So keep that in mind when we report the number of deaths. So we have now, though, surpassed over 850,000 confirmed cases here in the state of Michigan. Of course, that's according to the State Department of Health and Human Services. The state continues to lead the nation in new cases per capita, though, for the fifth straight week, despite nearly 2/5 of its residents being fully vaccinated. But again, as we just said, cases and hospitalizations are trending downward. So as of Monday, 2,800 people were hospitalized with COVID-19 in the state of Michigan. 769 were listed in intensive care units. 513 patients are on ventilators right now due to COVID. So that's a 39% drop from April 19th, when hospitalizations peaked with over 4,000 patients. So really a relief though, Tyler. If we have to remember, these are real people and real lives behind these numbers, but good news for so many of our healthcare workers on the front lines.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest concern with this surge, really all of our surges of COVID-19 here in the state of Michigan, throughout the country, is the impact that it's having or could have on the hospital systems. And a lot of our hospital systems, especially here in southeastern Michigan, but really throughout the state, were gravely concerned over the last month or so as the spike went into play and went to its most severe point at or about April 19th. Last month. And so seeing the cases going down, while we're still number one in the country in cases per capita at this moment in time, the numbers are trending down, hospitalizations are trending down, and people are getting back out and getting vaccinated. So if we're continuing to get people vaccinated, we're continuing to be safe and prevent cases and keep these numbers going down, we're going at least in the right direction, whereas before we were really trending in a very, very dangerous direction, different from many of the other spikes we've had, and similar in some ways here in Michigan.
Hey, all schools need in-person classes this fall. That's according to the U.S. Secretary of Education. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said he expects every school to offer in-person instruction this fall, and that while there is a place for online learning, not every student requires a virtual learning option. Cardona did acknowledge challenges that have kept large groups of students learning remotely this spring, including families' lack of trust and concerns about how students were treated at school even before the pandemic. So his comments come as more districts are already making decisions about how school is going to work and look next school year. So already some districts have said they plan to offer a fully virtual option for families who want it, while others are waiting to see what parents want as vaccine distribution ramps up and older students are able to get the shots. So Cardona said that he was pleased with the results of a national survey that showed nearly 80% of schools were offering at least some in-person instruction. In February, he still felt a sense of urgency to reopen the rest. It really is a very interesting article regarding his statements with a school. It's in the Bridge magazine if you want to see the entire article, because We also know that throughout this time, Tyler, so many students that are really struggling are the ones that come from our minority communities. And, a lot of people feel like more needs to be done to address the education gap within our communities and our school system, which has been highlighted, I think, even more so during the pandemic.
Yeah, it absolutely has. Because of our need during this pandemic to go to virtual learning, we've seen that access to technology and access to the internet beyond just the simple access to technology has been vital. And we've spoken to a number of guests before that have said this pandemic has shown us that more than ever before, we need to start treating technology such as internet access and access to computers or other electronic devices that can access the internet as being an essential utility. Kind of, one of our guests, and I don't remember exactly who it was, said it should be compared to electricity. When electricity became mainstreamed and important to our everyday lives, the same thing should be considered for technologies. And there is a significant gap between communities of a higher socioeconomic status versus communities of a lower socioeconomic status. Communities with more of a white population versus those with more of a minority population. And this pandemic has certainly shown that. And so getting kids back into school, hopefully when we do that, we don't lose focus on these disparities in educating our kids, because they still exist. They're not going away, and they could very easily get worse if we're not managing them after this pandemic, when a lot of people are still going to be very much affected by COVID-19 years after the pandemic passes.
Yeah, there is definitely going to be a catch up, but really, I think so many people are hoping that there's some silver linings that come out of the pandemic and this crisis, and one of them being the issue with broadband access and computer access as well for so many of the students, because we know right now it is a necessity to have internet access within your homes, and not just internet access, but also enough of it so if you have 3 or 4 kids, they can all be on the internet at the same time doing their schoolwork. So those are the issues that we hope are addressed and are fixed coming out of the pandemic. So with that as a reminder, you can always get the latest headlines. Go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, and that's where you'll find the latest headlines each and every day. And again, at the top of the page, we do put direct links to the resources that you need, including the state of Michigan. If you want to go on there to read the latest order from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services regarding the mask, you can do so by just going to civiccentertv.com. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, always great to have Representative Brenda Lawrence with us here on the show. As we know, she has been spearheading Mass Vaccination Week. How are things going? We'll talk to her about that and so much more right after the break.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or 2 or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Great to have you with us here on the Wednesday edition of the Megacast. We all know that Governor Whitmer has set that 70% vaccination rate as a benchmark to try to reopen the state of Michigan. And demand has caught up with supply. And we know more and more people have been hesitant to get the vaccination, but to try to help overcome so many of the hurdles that may be facing some individuals, Representative Brenda Lawrence for the 14th Congressional District is spearheading a mass vaccination week right now. So we're so happy to have the Congresswoman here with us on the Megacast. And with that, how are things going?
Hello, thank you for having me. So I'm so excited to promote awareness, accessibility, and to educate about the vaccine. We have been on the coronavirus highway for way too long. The only exit off is through the vaccine. And we know that there's some people who are saying, I don't know how to go online to register. So all this week, it's walk up. You don't have to register. You just walk in and get your vaccine. We also know that they said it's not in my neighborhood. I don't have transportation. We're at high school, churches. We are at hospitals. We are at city halls. And this week, we're calling the GOTV, Get Out the Vaccine. And for people to, just like we run a campaign to make it accessible and to make it educate people about the availability. And we also have to address some of those awful myths, like they're putting a chip in my arm, people are dying. And I ask people, when you hear that, you know, it's very few people in America now that did not have a direct contact with someone that was hospitalized or who unfortunately passed away from COVID. Name me one person you know who died from the vaccine. I'm not aware of any, but I do know that I've cried at many funerals and memorials from this virus.
Well, and we do know there is a person on the western part of the state in Grand Rapids. Her family does believe that she passed away after getting the J&J. And with that, when they paused the J&J vaccine, I will say I was signed up the day that the pause came down. Do you think it's that pause has kind of pushed people to be more hesitant to get the vaccine? Because we do know some people are searching out the one and done dose versus the Moderna and the Pfizer. Did that hurt our vaccination efforts?
The reality is that look at the response that we actually pulled the vaccine off the market to do more research. And I will not sit here and say that everything is perfect, but I will tell you, if you take aspirin, if you read the bottle, there are side effects and there are warnings on any medical medicine that you are prescribed. But when you're sick, you go to the doctor and they prescribe medicine or treatment and you follow that. The vaccine is a result of science. There are so many complicated things about our bodies. And I can't predict that, like the incident, we don't know, but they are feeling that J&J was involved in it. But does that mean that you should risk dying? Does that mean that your physical being, that you are going to say that I'm not going to participate in getting us back to work, back to school, back to the games, back to weddings? We really need to get to the 70%.
We're talking with Representative Brenda Lawrence on the Megacast. She represents Michigan's 14th Congressional District, but is also spearheading a mass vaccination week here in the Metro Detroit area. I will say I went and I did get vaccinated yesterday at Ford Field. It was quick and it was easy. And I will say I don't get the flu shot. So I probably, in all honesty, would not have been vaccinated if I didn't feel the pressure from the public and our politicians to get it. It was quick and it was easy, but I was really surprised at how few people were getting vaccinated yesterday. It was like a mass empty hallway. And with that though, do you think part of this also just comes from some people feel like they have a mistrust in the government because of what's happened decades ago?
There's some history in the United States that does not promote trust. I mean, we've had some moments in history that some people will still hold America and the government accountable for. But I can tell you, sitting in the seat of government now, knowing that this vaccine has been developed by scientists, and it didn't, some people think it just started with Corona, but the type of vaccine that we're having has been in research for decades. But this virus promoted the actual rollout of the vaccine. And so I'm telling people, I've got both of my shots. I was reluctant like you, but when I look at the devastating impact of this virus, not only to our health and to our lives, but to our economy, to the education of our children, to just overall mental health. We must do something, and we can do it together. And you can sit around and you can find everything you shouldn't do it for. I'm going to give you all the lists to balance that, to show you all the reasons you should. And you're sitting here talking to me. You took it, and I've had both. And I just want everyone to know that I personally am not aware of anyone who was hospitalized or passed away. And I know a lot of people from this virus. And this is happening. The Congressional Black Caucus started this. This is happening all over the country, in Texas and Ohio and in Florida and in New York and California and Vegas. We're all doing a mass vaccination week because 30% of the people getting the vaccines are the African Americans. However, we died and was hospitalized at a disproportionate rate. And the fact that we need to do something so I don't have to lose any more of the members of the Black community and families is incumbent upon me to act. And that's why we're doing GOTV, Get Out the Vaccine.
And we should note as well, they had signs posted yesterday letting people know your ID was not needed, because we do know, especially in Southwest Detroit, sometimes some members of our Hispanic community, they're worried that their information is going to be tracked. So maybe if we have undocumented people here in our community, they should know that their information is not being taken. No one is collecting to try to figure out if you're undocumented or not.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And, you know, if you do have some concerns, you can go to lawrence.house.gov. You'll see all the locations where the vaccine will be given. In addition to that, I put out the announcement the other day. If you need me, call my office and say, I need you to come hold my hand so I can be with me, because some people are just afraid. And I will be glad to come and hold your hand and walk you through it.
So if I can ask you this, Congresswoman, because we do know that if someone does have severe side effects from getting the vaccine, they feel like they are doing a community service by getting the vaccine. If they do have complications and medical complications, why is it they cannot be financially compensated? Because they can't sue the vaccine makers, nor can they sue the government. Shouldn't we be taking care of the people for doing a community service and getting the vaccine if they do have complications?
Every medical procedure that you take, every medicine you take, it depends on your amazing chemical makeup and design of your body, your genes, your all the things that make you who you are uniquely. There may be some side effects and some reactions to that. So no one can promise you that because I had no side effects that you're not. I've had people say, I felt like I was just really tired. It lasted a day or two and then it went away. But I have not had anyone to be in a position where they wanted to sue. I have not heard of any or been made aware of it. And you know, you can go in for childbirth, you can go in for a knee replacement or a simple colonoscopy, and you can have a side effect to that. I mean, you have your legal rights in every scenario in America.
So with that though, if for the people that maybe are uncomfortable, if that was offered, do you think that would help reduce some of the hesitancy?
I have not heard anyone tell me that that has been an issue. And if it's an issue, we will absolutely address that.
We're speaking with Representative Brenda Lawrence. She represents the 14th Congressional District. Our motto right now, go TV, get out the vaccine. It is so easy right now. We know at the beginning it was very difficult, but now the supply has caught up with the demand. You can pretty much get it anywhere. And do you think that if the FDA does approve allowing at least the Pfizer vaccine at this point in time for teens 12 to 15, that that's going to help us as a country reach that so-called herd immunity?
It will, because unfortunately right now, the majority of our infections are ages 40 and under. They're our most social group in society, you know, ball games, traveling, socialization, and unfortunately being hospitalized, because when the virus first hit, it was the older people, it was the people 60 and over. Now it is those 40 and under. And so to stop the spread, it will definitely benefit the herd immunity that we're seeking.
So with that, if we can kind of shift focus just a little bit, I'd like to get your thoughts on the staffing shortage that so many businesses here in the state of Michigan, but also across the country, they're experiencing right now. And for some of them, they're having to reduce hours or even close their businesses, not so much because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but because of the crisis in trying to get employees.
Well, I've heard this from numerous restaurant owners in particular. We know that there is an unemployment subsidy that has been placed into the payroll situation for people who are unemployed because of COVID. We have tried everything to keep our economy afloat during this period. I say to anyone, once you get your vaccine, I'll go back to that, then we can have you working in a restaurant without fear. And we can absolutely, the more people we get vaccinated, then they can come in without fear of you. We have to overcome, you know, people are acting as if everything is fine. There's been a lot of trauma related to this. We need people to start going back to work. And I will say that very clearly and without apology. Our economy doesn't work unless we are all working. And it's time for people to go back to work. We know the restaurants are opening up, thank goodness, but they can't open up without people there to serve and to perform the job that's needed in restaurants. So I'm saying to everyone, get your vaccine and get back to work.
So do you think requiring vaccine and having to show that you've been vaccinated is going to be a part of our future? People are already anticipating with travel, it may become a necessity.
The overall intent to protect people and to stop the spread, some people define that as government reaching too far, as government taking away their rights. But I want to be very clear that the fact that we are here now and reducing the amount of deaths, oh my goodness, it was horrible every day to just get these hundreds and hundreds of reports across the country of people dying. And now we have hospitalization, but very few deaths. That's a result of government stepping in and saying that we cannot allow a pandemic to just wipe out our country. The fact that we're giving the unemployment subsidy is because people couldn't work and they're at home, and we had to do something, because what are you going to do, send people home to starve to death? So the government, there's always that thin line. How far do you go? How much do you do? When do you pull back? And we're always going to be criticized, but I know for a fact the intent of all of the bills, the rescue bill, the stimulus package, the unemployment, is to help Americans and to give you a lifeline during this pandemic.
So with that, I know that you have a background with the U.S. Postal Service. I believe they're doing a protest today in Detroit. We are still seeing issues with delays. What is still going on? What's the problem still? I know that in the beginning they were saying that they possibly thought it was connected to the Republican Party trying to slow down the mail so that people, if they were voting by mail, their vote wasn't counted. But here we are, the election is over. And these problems and these issues and these delays are still sticking around.
Well, now it is, when I spoke to the Postmaster General and spoke to the district manager here in Michigan, they're saying it's people are not coming to work, that there's over 30,000 postal employees who are not reporting to work. And the fact that they're still using as the reason for not reporting the pandemic. And so we are going to be, as we get more and more vaccinated, removing that excuse that I don't feel safe. They had some really bad breakouts because postal workers are first responders. They didn't get to sit at home during the pandemic. And so now we have to get people back to work. And I'm looking at this very closely and monitoring how many people they're saying are off work. And the Postal Service has to do their job. And they're saying that they're rotating the routes. So if you don't get your mail today, the postmaster of Detroit said, then you'll get it tomorrow. But that person yesterday who got mail won't get it today because they're trying to cover all the routes. That doesn't sound acceptable, but this is a number one priority for us to deliver the mail.
That is really fascinating. I hadn't heard that side of it, but I always appreciate your insight because we know that you worked for the U.S. Postal Service. And with that, I did see on your website that you have a proposal to name one of the Detroit offices after Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul.
Absolutely. It's one of the honors you have being a member of Congress. You can name federal buildings. And she was a dear friend and I was a huge fan. And that's one of our ways to represent and honor her legacy and her contributions she made during her life.
So do you think is it going to happen then?
Yes, it has been signed by the president. So we're waiting for COVID and all the restrictions to lift so that we can have a really grand renaming.
She really did live such a fascinating life, but not only her, but her father as well. Yeah. I recently watched the show based on her life on Nat Geo. I know the family wasn't necessarily supportive of the programming, but it really was fascinating. And I think not only told her story, but the story of her father, who was also instrumental and offering so much to our community.
I did not know her father, but I watched it as well, and it was eye-opening for me. It was eye-opening to me because she wasn't a complainer, and to see some of the challenges she had in her life, I was like, wow. I mean, I would talk to her on the phone for hours and never heard her reach back or begrudge her life. She just wanted to live in the moment.
And what an angel when it came to her singing. There just not another voice like Aretha Franklin's.
You know, it was one of those voices you didn't have to say, who is that singing? You recognize that voice. And there's few people who could stand at that level and just, whenever they open their mouths, you go like, oh, that's Aretha, or that's Barbara Streisand, or that's Celine Dion. Or, you knew the women, Whitney Houston was another one. But it was such an honor for me to know her.
Oh, well, I think it's such an honor as well for you to be able to give that gift to her family, to be able to name a building after her, because we do know she meant so much not only to Detroit in this area, but also the entire country as well. So I think she would absolutely love that you're doing that for her.
Yes.
Representative Brenda Lawrence with us here on the Megacast. Anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to add? I feel like all of our elected leaders, you guys you're so busy. It's like a juggling act every day.
Well, I want everyone to know that this week where Mother's Day is coming up. There's something I want to add. What better gift to give your mother? One of the things that have really devastated us during this virus is the separation from our parents. Some of us, the parents were in nursing home or even living at home, and we would drop things off at the door. We haven't had that hug from our mother for over a year. It's because we're trying to protect her. And if you are a mother, think about you being healthy and being around to take care of your children. So Mother's Day is coming up. What better gift than to get the vaccine? And for anyone, you can find something wrong with the sun shining because you can get sunburned. But thank goodness the sun comes out and it gives warmth and it makes us feel so good. And I will tell you the benefits of this vaccine 4 times, triple times any of the concerns that you have. Talk to your doctor. You know, I'm a politician saying, go out and get the vaccine because I want to get this virus under control. I had a very dear friend who has a lot of allergies, and she would not get the vaccine until she went to her doctor and got an exam and got his blessing. And she now has her 2nd shot. So please, I want you to get the vaccine, but I want you to understand, because it's your body, but we need you. This is a team effort. Let's get off of this highway of coronavirus and get back to our lives.
And I really think being able to just walk in and get the vaccination is really going to be a game changer for not only us, for all of us here in Michigan, but also across the country as well.
I wanted to share with you my hesitancy. A dear friend of mine called, he's a doctor, and he said, Brenda, have you gotten your vaccine? And I said, I'm gonna see what happens. You know, I heard some people are getting sick. I don't know. He said, Brenda, sick, dead, sick, dead. He said, I can fix sick. I cannot fix dead. Please get the vaccine. And this is what I want to say to everyone. He said, I need you. You are my representative in Congress. And just think about you. And why do, Ronnie, do we need you? We need your voice. We need your brilliance, your talent. And I can just say this about all of our community. Those people that we lost, they're gone. Their talent, their love, and all the things that they brought, it's gone. We need you. We need you so that we can continue to have an amazing country. Thank you so much, Ronnie, and have an amazing Mother's Day to everyone. And get your vaccine, GOTV.
Thank you, and happy Mother's Day to you as well. And we look forward to the ceremony naming the post office after Aretha Franklin. Again, thank you for all your work that you do for all of us here, because we know it has not been an easy time for you and your counterparts there in DC. So thank you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we're going to be talking to the president of a nonprofit organization that helps so many of our people here locally with disabilities. That and so much more coming up on the Megacast.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development. 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Well, welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe doing an awesome job, as always, holding things down for us back there in West Bloomfield at the studio. As a reminder, we're here Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. until noon live. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Also, if you have cable, you'll find us on Channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T, and you can listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And if you still can't find us, we're making it easier yet. We are live streaming the Megacast on our Facebook page as well. With that, my apologies for running a little bit behind to our next guest. Whenever we get our elected leaders on, we try to give them a grace with a little bit of extra time because we know they are doing so much work for the area. But Pamela Ayres joins us now. She's the president for FAR Therapeutic Arts and Recreation, and talking about someone who is also doing so much for our community. Pamela, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you so much. And absolutely, I understand the running behind. She had such great information to share.
So tell us more about your organization.
Well, we're actually going to be celebrating our 70th anniversary this year. So a lot of people, yeah, it's pretty exciting. So we've been around for quite a while. We've been providing creative arts therapy for any age and any diagnosis in Michigan. We service Wayne County, Oakland County, and Macomb County. We do it through creative arts therapy and recreational services. So music therapy, art therapy, dance movement therapy, and recreational therapy.
So before we jump into how you have been doing throughout the pandemic, I love the history and how your organization started way back in the beginning. It was just families coming together.
Families coming together. They wanted some place for their children to socialize. And over the years, we've morphed into this organization that last year we actually serviced over 1,500 individuals. Anywhere from little bitties, 3 years old, up to adults with dementia and Alzheimer's in their 80s.
So with that, a lot of your therapy is in person, but we know that this past year we've all been locked down. How have you managed to survive?
Well, at first it was really overwhelming, but within 2 weeks we pulled our therapy team together and we said, okay, we've got this technology is wonderful, so let's see what we can do with technology. And we started providing a Zoom therapy, which is completely HIPAA compliant. So we were able to still have that connection with our clients and provide our services through Zoom. Now, that wasn't the right fit for all of our clients because of their disabilities and but for the clients that we were able to still have that connection with, it was really, really vital.
And I'm wondering, because I will say, even for people without disabilities, trying to learn via Zoom or through the internet can be a challenge. And also, let's just say some of us don't always pay attention during some of those meetings and those classes. So how did you address some of those issues with your clients?
Well, we have just such an amazing therapeutic team, and they're just so great and brilliant at keeping our clients engaged. Our sessions are 30 minutes long, and so they were able just to keep everybody engaged. And sometimes it was just being able to check in and make sure that they were okay. This was very difficult times for everybody, let alone our special needs community. It was very scary. A lot of our clients, they really needed to have that schedule. They needed to know what was going on. They wanted to make sure that their therapist was safe. We had some of our clients that were just worried. They were worried because they weren't able to see their therapist. So being able to connect through Zoom really offered a great opportunity. And for our medically fragile individuals, we still have 81 sessions a week that have decided to stay Zoom or stay through virtual sessions, which is wonderful. It gives families who just maybe aren't comfortable coming into a building with other people quite yet, that option to be able to still offer therapy to their individual, their child, but in a way that they feel comfortable. but we are back up and running. We're doing just private therapy currently. We're not doing any group therapy, which is a big part of who we are as an organization. And just 2 of our 3 locations are up and running right now. We also provide music therapy out of the DSO, and that's on hold right now at that building. But we have a pretty wide footprint. We service Oakland County and Macomb County. We're also in 30 public schools. So for our kids that can't be mainstreamed into typical music or art, we still have the opportunity to work with their special needs individuals, and so they can still have creative arts therapy.
Wow. I'm like just listening to how many people you're reaching.
Yeah.
What a struggle and logistical nightmare trying to balance it all. I was on your Facebook page earlier, and one of your therapists, she was singing as she was, had a book on turning the pages. Her voice was incredible. And I'm like, if she can sound like that over, the internet, what does she sound like in person? I was mesmerized.
Well, every year we do an amazing performance at the Seligman Performing Arts Center, and our therapists perform along with our clients. And the community at large is just blown away by the talent of our individuals, our therapists and our clients. It's pretty amazing.
We're speaking with Pamela Ayres. She's the president for FAR Therapeutic Arts and Recreation. And with that, what do you think the next 6 months is going to look like for your organization?
Well, right now we're really struggling with the ability to fundraise. We've had some wonderful luck with being able to receive some grants that have been able to keep us afloat during these times, but our special events are very limited. So I think right now it's just seeing how that's going to lead and if we're going to be able to. Our November event that I just mentioned, that's our clients performing. In last year, unfortunately, we had to do it very small in virtual. And so we weren't able to have as many of our clients participate. And my heart cannot take that away from our clients. They look forward to it every year. And not only do our clients look forward to it every year, so does aunts and uncles and grandparents, because a lot of our kids and adults don't have the opportunity to perform at school because of their disability, or maybe they're not part of a church choir. Some of them, that's actually our goal, is to get them part of those things outside of FAR. But the FAR Friends event in November, we really are just hoping that we can have that. So that's really our focus right now. And then also our growth during this time. A lot of organizations realize the importance of creative arts therapy for mental health. And so we started teaming up and collaborating with Vista Maria, Wellsprings, Lutheran Services, Methodist Children's Home. So we've been growing a lot.
So the need is greater, which puts more stress on your organization, but it's harder to fundraise. So in one side, it's been great that people realize the importance of the services that you offer. But on the other side, we need people to continue to support organizations like you.
Especially with our 70th anniversary, we want to celebrate that. That's something very special. And we want to make sure that we have that opportunity to celebrate turning 70. And the greatest way to do that is having other people from the community celebrate with us.
So how important is it to have these various forms of therapy available to people with special needs?
Well, creative arts therapy, really, the work that we do with our clients, it helps with developing motor skills, sensory skills, improves different ways of communicating, so they can communicate in general. Moreover, it gives our clients the tools that they need to comprehend and master their own emotions. So it's very, very important, especially during these challenging times.
We're speaking with Pamela Ayres. She is the president for FAR Therapeutic Arts and Recreation. We have so many people talking about your clients. What is it also like for their family members and their support system to be able to have therapies such as the one that you offer available for their loved ones?
Oh, it's so vital. It's so important. It gives our clients a place to stand toe to toe with their peers, which for families, that's super important. And also, we're really a community center. We're a FAR family. And it's a great place for families to come and be able to talk about their child with other parents that are going through the same thing, or a place that grandma can come and bring their child or their grandchild or their adult child, so they have an opportunity. So we really do play a big role in the community. We're very, very lucky. The First Presbyterian Church in Birmingham has gifted us this space since the 60s. We have a very large space. We don't pay for rent. We don't pay for electricity. We have this beautiful space. And then we also have a small footprint out in Macomb County as well, where we do music and art therapy. And it's a very comforting building, both of our buildings, and it's a very safe place for our clients to come. And families really like that.
Right. Well, for so many families, it's that additional stress throughout the pandemic, because it's been hard for all of us to understand. How do you relate that to someone in your family that has special needs, that maybe is really, struggling throughout this time? And so an organization like yours, it really is more than just therapy for the clients. It's a family and a support system for their family members as well.
Absolutely. I love to tell this story. We have a client, her name is Lisa, and Lisa is very special to FAR. She's going to turn 70 this year as well. And she's actually been coming to FAR since she was 10 years old. Wow. So she's been getting services for 50 years, because she did leave for 10 years and went to live with her brother outside of the state. But she's been receiving services for 50 years. And this is really her special place. This is her comforting place. And her brother, knowing that he lives so far away, he is so appreciative that this is the place that she can come to. She feels safe. She knows that she has friends here. She comes into the office every time and says, "Hi, ladies," and checks in with us before she goes to her therapy. She usually arrives very early because she's just excited to be here. And just when talking to her brother, and she is going to be our story for our annual appeal this year. Every year we put out an annual appeal, because it's just such perfect timing. She's turning 70. She's turning 70. And we're turning 70, and that she's been coming here for so long. And families really look forward to knowing that their individuals have a safe place.
So Pamela, we've heard so much over the pandemic about learning loss for our students that are not in the classroom, they're having to learn virtually. Is there a learning loss or a step back in the therapy for some of your clients because of this crisis?
Yeah, there's definitely that lack of personal connection with their therapist. We were able to do virtual sessions, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same. So that we've definitely seen a loss there, not only for the therapy, but also with the kids losing a lot of their social opportunities. A big part of who we are is we have a social group. We have Go Far parties, which are so special, and we haven't been able to have those. And that's when the whole family comes on a Friday night. Everybody has dinner together, and then the parents or caregiver would go into a different room. We'd have an educational speaker, and our clients would just hang out with their friends and dance and have dessert. And it was run by art therapist and our dance movement therapist, and everybody was out on the dance floor. And now that's gone. So that's been a huge loss, because a big part of who we are is helping our clients be able to communicate and make friends and stand toe to toe with their peers maybe in a public school. So yeah, it's been hard on everybody. It's been hard on kids. Imagine our special needs community. It's just been really difficult on them, because it's hard. It's been hard on them.
Well, they are so lucky to have you and your team there to help them navigate this crisis. Pamela Ayres with us here. She's the president of FAR Therapeutics. How can people find out more information about your organization?
Well, perfect timing. We actually launched our new website yesterday. So if anybody would like to visit and learn a little bit more about the organization, they can visit far-therapy.org. So it's just FAR-therapy.org, or they can call the office. And that number is 248-646-3347. And we'd love to answer any questions. We use volunteers, not quite as many right now because of the pandemic, but we are going to be able to do our summer camp programming, but it's going to be outside underneath the tent, which is going to be very different, having a musical theater camp outside underneath a tent. But the church here is so supportive to us, First Presbyterian, that they're putting a very large tent in the back parking lot. So we're still going to be able to do that. So, and please, if anybody has somebody in their life with a special need that hasn't heard of FAR, we're kind of the best kept secret. We've been around for 70 years. And unless you have an individual in your life, you may not have heard of us. We're trying to change that with having this great opportunity with you, Ronnie, to talk a little bit more about FAR. But please refer any individuals over to us. The more individuals with special needs that we can touch and help through our therapies is really our ultimate goal and our mission.
Well, we hope that it's great to have you in our community. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Pamela Ayres with us. She's the president of FAR Therapeutic Arts and Recreation. We so appreciate your time, but also all the work that you and your entire team does, not just during the pandemic, but for the past 70 years as well.
Thank you so much. And that's really what makes us strong as our therapy team. So thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we are going to be speaking with our favorite film critic. That's next here on the Megacast.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
We want to say welcome back to the second hour of the Megacast. As a reminder, if you can't tune in for the entire 2 hours, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, we kind of understand. But you can always catch previous episodes of the Megacast. Just go to civiccentertv.com, click on the Megacast tab. There you will find the long form interviews going all the way back to March when they first started the show. And actually that's March 2020. It's weird because we're 2021 now. Also, if you just click on the on-demand section, you can listen to the individual interviews as well. About another hour left here in the show, and excited to talk with our next guest. But I have to say, Nate Adams, one of our favorite film critics here in the Metro Detroit area. Nate, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Ronnie. Always fun to come on and chat about everything that's happened in movies. And hi, I think Tyler's out there somewhere too. He's hiding over there, right?
Yeah, so Tyler, I'm working in the home studio. Tyler holds things down back there in West Bloomfield.
You guys are a good duo. You guys are a good duo. You're fun to watch.
Thank you. So with that, Nate, I have to say, we were so excited for the movie theaters to reopen. And I don't know if I should admit this, but I'm going to. I haven't been yet because there has been absolutely nothing that has come out that I want to see, because you know it's going to come out online in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're kind of at this point because we've all been trained to watch things from home. And now that movies are coming home quicker, there is that mentality that, we're just going to wait and see. It's got to be something massive. It's got to be something that is worthy of traveling out to see on the big screen. And it's partially, I think, why the Oscar ratings this year were so low. I think it was under 10 million when 5 years ago it was like at 43 million viewers. Like they were pulling in Super Bowl numbers. But see, the thing is, that's surprising to me because this year's crops of nominees, everybody could have seen at home. Everybody had access to them. Not necessarily they're massive, big quadrant films like Black Panther, like Joker, like the Bohemian Rhapsodies that everybody kind of saw, but they were available at home. So I was just kind of surprised because everyone's always like, I want to see the Oscar movies. I don't know what, I don't know what's nominated, but I also think too, that with the pandemic, people just didn't pay attention to movies as much this year, but we're starting to get back to that. We're starting to get back in that routine that things are going to start coming out every week. So, this week we have a new Jason Statham, Guy Ritchie film called Wrath of Man. Next week, there's a Spiral from the Book of Saw starring Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. And then after that, we're getting into A Quiet Place 2, which has been shelved, which was supposed to come out last March, but now it's coming out Memorial Day weekend. And then Fast and Furious 9 at the end of June. So once we start getting audiences back in that rhythm of, big movies are coming back to theaters, I think Ronnie, you're going to start wanting to, I'm craving that popcorn. I want to head back into a movie theater.
But you really wonder and worry about the movie theater industry overall, because while they have been allowed to reopen, the crowds aren't back. And we do know that, mainly they're making most of their money off of, the food and the popcorn and the drinks and having enough people in there to watch the movies. So how long do you think this is going to last? Because I think I just heard that the small theater in downtown Royal Oak,
the main art,
it's going to be closing. And that was kind of more of an...
Is that confirmed? I just thought that was just temporary. Do you think is that what the rumor mill's saying, that it's closing down?
I heard that it was closing. And I don't know if it's permanent. I know that they did close for a while.
We need those theaters.
Right? I mean, those are a part of like the film festivals and really kind of help.
The art house scene, the films that are platform released, this year, for example, like Nomadland kind of went straight to Hulu, but back if this wasn't a pandemic era, it would have been platform release and it would have started playing at they get the exclusive early releases of these films as they gradually make their way into bigger cities. So those theaters are crucial footprints for those films to kind of get platformed and to get seen and to kind of build that buzz and word of mouth. Because, back in the day, this is before I was born, but back in the 80s and the 70s and stuff, like, think about The Exorcist, right? Those films, they didn't always come out on opening weekend in every theater, right? That changed. It would start in like New York City and LA, and then it would build buzz. And then so The Exorcist might come out in May in, New York City, but it wasn't in Michigan until like August. So by the time it got here, it kind of had this momentum where it's like, oh my gosh, I have to see this film. That changed with Jaws. Jaws was the first film when they were like, let's test this and see what happens. And then it made tons of money. And then that kind of changed the release model as we know it. And it's good that you mentioned it too, Ronnie, about the concession prices. People go to the movie theaters and they wonder, gosh, why am I paying $15 for a large tub of popcorn and a large drink? That's so much money. Because studios take about 70% of ticket sales at the box office. So only 30% of that is going to the theater. So they have to make up the revenue somehow. So you're right. They need capacity restrictions easing a little bit. And New York just announced that I think by May 15th that they're going to be at 70, or I think they're actually going to allow people to open at full capacity, but you have to wear masks and you have to kind of maintain distance when you can. And California, New York, who at one point they were the epicenters of this pandemic, they're now going to be pretty much fully reopened by the middle of June. Michigan, I know Whitmer released that vaccine plan where if we get to 70% of vaccine 2 weeks later, then things open back up. July, maybe Michigan will be middle of July, we'll be back at that threshold. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and do you think too, because we have these big times that we go to the movies, it used to be Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Christmas is the number one movie going day of the year. Yeah.
Is it? See? Because after you open your presents, you need a break from all your relatives.
I love going to the movies on Christmas. It's one of my favorite traditions. And I love it. It's just, I can't wait to get back to that opening, like Christmas Day. I remember seeing like Les Mis, right, back in 2012, and the line was out the door and I had to sit in the front row because it was just packed wall to wall. I can't wait to get back to that. I can't wait to feel that thrill again. We're having the Detroit scene. We're having our first in-person press screening since pre-pandemic next Tuesday. So I'm excited. That's going to be fun. And I can't wait to see all the film critic peeps that we've just been communicating via virtually. So it'll be nice to kind of see people. I've been fully vaccinated, so I'm obviously very comfortable with it. So I mean, that's a case by case basis if people are feeling up to it.
So I know Imagine Theater, they've been a bit creative throughout this pandemic. They did the drive-in, and I believe in the Royal Oak, they're doing some live performances as well.
I did see that, yes.
Trying to find ways to get dollars in the doors because it's survival time right now.
They're trying to bridge that gap because, we have a weekend where Godzilla versus Kong does $50 million. And then last week, even Mortal Kombat and a Japanese import called Demon Slayer, which is based on a popular anime, both targeting the same, they're R-rated action films, they're targeting the same audience, and they both opened to above $20 million, which was a huge boost to the industry. But then you get like 2 weeks now, and it's like that momentum kind of goes because there's no steady diet of movies coming out. So Imagine and other venues are thinking outside the box like that, doing events like this, like the concerts, to drum up interest, to kind of, hey, we are open, we are here. Movie theaters have been open during the whole pandemic, right? That's not the whole pandemic, but they've been open for like the better half of the year. And so I think the communication now is just kind of reinforcing to moviegoers that, maybe that are skeptics or maybe they're not fully vaccinated yet, that, hey, we are open, come back in. And I also want to point out the Maple Theater is doing something kind of remarkable. They are the last show of the day, like the 7:00 show. Only people who present that they are fully vaccinated can go to see a film because that way it just makes it comfortable. I'm not know if that's the solution because I know there's a lot of controversy around this whole vaccine passport thing, but maybe a hybrid model like that might be the solution to make people feel more comfortable about stepping into a movie theater.
Wow. So that's the first time I'm hearing that, but it does make sense, trying to really cater to everyone and their feelings out there.
Yeah. And maybe that was changed. That might've been like an initial, like I saw something be released about it. They might've modified it since then. I'm not sure, but that model kind of seems to make sense right now. Maybe once we get to that herd immunity, we'll see. Maybe it gets adapted.
So what do you think are going to be the big summer blockbusters? Are we going to get back to having some of these big movies coming out on a regular schedule to entice people to get back to the movie theater?
Yeah, so August right now too is kind of looking like in the span of, I think, a 6-week period, I think there's 22 new films just coming out in August by itself, because we're kind of gradually building up to that point where we think we'll be, at that herd immunity rate. As far as like what I'm looking at, they're going to be huge numbers. Fast and Furious 9 comes out at the end of June. And as of right now, Universal is sticking to that release date. That right now on the summer calendar looks like the biggest like potential film this summer to make the $1 billion threshold, because it is such a global franchise. Quiet Place 2, I think, has the potential to make about 40-50 million its opening weekend, which if you're thinking about what we've been seeing as far as network, that's really, those are really, really solid numbers. You got Cruella, which is going to have a Disney Plus theatrical hybrid. See, the thing about the Disney Plus model too, because Black Widow is also going to be following a Marvel film. We haven't had a Marvel film in 22 months, which is nuts to me. And then in the span of now until next year, we're going to have 10 plus some TV shows. Disney Plus they're charging $30 to watch it from home, or you can go in a theater. So I think that $30 price point is a little too high. And I think that it's going to encourage some people, like, I don't want to watch Black Widow at home. I think it's going to encourage some people to go out and see it in the theaters. You also have Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights, which is going to be a hybrid of HBO Max and theaters. And as we saw with the Godzilla and Mortal Kombat numbers, just because it's going to be available at home doesn't necessarily mean people won't travel out to the theaters. And I don't want to see, I'm a musical nut. I love musicals, and something about watching In the Heights for the first time at home just doesn't sit right, especially as a fan of the musical, and I've seen it live. So I think those have the potential to kind of bring in big numbers.
And I'm thinking too, your home setup is probably, a bit more advanced than the
it's just not the same.
Setup, right?
I actually ventured out to last week. They did a Scott Pilgrim versus the World re-release in Dolby Atmos, which I had never seen a Dolby Atmos auditorium before. And I went to the AMC Forum up in Auburn Hills, and wow, blew me away. And it's just like those kind of experiences cannot be replicated at home.
We're talking with Nate Adams. He's the only critic.com. You can find all of his work. And with that, Nate, too, we're going into the summer months. And, you know, you really think about the summer months, kids are out of school, those rainy days. What did you do? You went to the movies, you know, like maybe one parent takes, you know, 8 kids from the neighborhood. Do you think that's we're going to get back there? Any big kids movies coming out other than the ones that you talked about with Disney?
So the biggest children's film this summer, I think that has the potential it's called Luca, and it's a Pixar film. But Disney made the weird decision. They're only releasing it on Disney Plus. It was originally going to be scheduled. It's not even getting a hybrid release. You know, Black Widow and Cruella are going to get both. Luca isn't getting that. They're putting it right on Disney Plus. So that I'm thinking there's a sequel to Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, which was the 2000 DreamWorks film. That comes out in June. That's an animated film that might bring in some people. Off the top of my head, I can't think of much like children's, like, you know, there's going to be some family-oriented pictures. But as far as, I don't know, the drive-ins, I think, are going to help fill in that void too, because drive-ins last summer, you know, had the big resurgence with the family pictures too. And so maybe, I don't know, you're right. The summer is missing that big quadrant, like kids film. And I think Luca would have met that demand, but no, it's going to Disney Plus.
So while we're on the topic of some of the big summer movies coming out, let's talk streaming for a little bit. What do you think is going to be the must watch show that's going to come on streaming?
So next week, Barry Jenkins did an adaptation of a popular book, The Underground Railroad, and that comes out next Friday, May 15th. And I've seen all 10 episodes, and it is quite spellbinding. And each episode feels, I'm surprised that Amazon is releasing an episode binge model. They're releasing all at once, because each episode feels like its own film. It's very cinematic, and taking it all in at once kind of was like overwhelming. So like I kind of had to stop. I was like, okay, I got to take time to watch this. There's also a show right now on HBO called Mayor of Easttown, which I think is phenomenal with Kate Winslet. And then Loki, which comes out on June 11th, which is the Disney Plus Marvel show about the popular Mischief of God, you know, Tom Hiddleston. I think that's going to be a big hit over the summer too. It's going to have like WandaVision, Falcon, and Winter Soldier levels of chatter on the internet.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we haven't had any of those Tiger King shows that have come out. Remember right back at the beginning of the pandemic, you had to watch it.
Bridgerton kind of got there. Bridgerton, I think, was I full disclosure, haven't watched Bridgerton. I've been told by many. And but you're right. We're missing that Stranger Things. We are missing, we're missing like I love Succession. I love Barry, like all those shows that were put on hold because of the pandemic. I think, right. These, they're starving for that content. These distributors, these streamers.
So with that, do you think Netflix is going to take a little bit of a hit, because we are seeing more streaming services such as Disney Plus, but also, you know, we have Amazon, and while we've had them before, they didn't have the lineup or the content that Netflix did. But I feel like some of the other streaming services are really upping their game right now.
Yeah, Netflix, I mean, they had their earnings report last week, and they did not meet their subscriber growth goal for this quarter. So, I mean, that kind of dipped the stocks a little bit. I think what Netflix really did well was back in the day, they were taking all these content from studios like The Office, like Breaking Bad, like Friends, and all these things, and they were throwing them, but they knew that these studios were going to see the value in their content and what Netflix was doing. So that's why they started investing in their own stuff early. And now they don't even need that content anymore. I mean, sure, a show like The Office would be huge, but I mean, since it's left Netflix, I'm not missing it. It's not necessarily a make or break for me. But Netflix is also smart because they just struck a deal with Sony Pictures. So Sony is like the only studio right now that doesn't have a streaming service. So they're just becoming a pipeline of films that they're going to make, but then they're going to release to streaming services. So Netflix struck a $3 billion deal with Sony to make all their films that are coming out this year and next, or no, it starts in 2022. So like, you know, the Spider-Man sequel, the Jumanji sequels, you know, Men in Blacks, anything like that. are going to go on Netflix. So they're getting creative with trying to find deals to make like that to kind of keep the pipeline up. And then I think that they also have Seinfeld. The entire Seinfeld library will be moving to Netflix in the next year too. So that I think they're still going to be a major player eventually, though. And mark my words, especially at the growth that they're going, Disney Plus will surpass Netflix eventually. But Netflix is still going to be around. It's still going to be a top 3 streaming service. But Disney Plus eventually is going to be king of the hill, king of the mountain, whatever you want to say.
I like King of the Mountain. And Nate Adams with us here on the Megacast. He's the film critic. You can find his work at theonlycritic.com. Nate, we always enjoy having you with us. Anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, I think you covered it. Just go out and support your local theaters. That's all we got. That's all we can do.
Right. Because we do want them to stick around. Because at the end of the day, we can stream things and they are coming to our homes so much faster than what they once did. I kind of think about even, the children's specials. You don't have to wait around to watch The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
We have this on demand. I mean, long gone are the days when like The Sixth Sense comes out in August and then you don't see it on video or TV until like April of the next year. Those days are gone. We're starving for content and it's coming at us faster than we can handle it.
Exactly. I did watch the documentary about the last Blockbuster. So
yes, I actually got a shirt. I should have worn it. I bought a shirt from them. Yeah.
Interesting times though, how things have changed because of technology. So, and it's all the way impacting the way we watch movies. Nate Adams, always fun having you. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Again, you can find out more. Just go to theonlycritic.com. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll be speaking with the Director for Undergraduate Admissions at Oakland University. This is the Megacast.
Fall behind on finances and on groceries, but you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. My Bridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or 2 or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
To the Megacast, just about 40 minutes left here in the show. And Gino, for so many of us, COVID-19 has changed how we live life, but it has not stopped us from moving forward in life. And right now is such an important time for so many high school seniors, but also college students as they continue to try to figure out what is next for them. What is life going to look like on the college campus come the fall? Joining us now, we're going to bring in Shane Lewis. He's the Director for Undergraduate Admissions at Oakland University. Shane, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So with that, Shane, can you talk to us a little bit about the admissions process this year? How has it changed for students that are still deciding if they're going to go to college in the fall?
Absolutely. We typically try to start with students when they're quite young, encouraging them to learn more about the college search process, all that entails. Typically, we're encouraging them to do things like visit college campuses and to get connected with those institutions that might end up on their short list when they get to their senior year. And so this year has really thrown that for a loop entirely, where we've really been challenged in terms of being able to offer that experience where they're getting to visit campus and actually see what life might be like as a student. in a virtual capacity. And so for many students, they may not have had the opportunity to get on that campus of that school that is in their top 5 or 3 institutions that they might be applying to. And an institution like Oakland, as an example, we were offering tours for a portion of the fall. And then when cases rose again in Michigan, we put a temporary pause on those. We're now back to on-campus tours. I can gladly say that we're once again welcoming students back to campus so they can get some of that experience they may not have had over the last 6 months or so. But in general, for our students, that varies institution to institution. So it's kind of all across the board, and it certainly has been a challenge for them.
So as you've been able to welcome, prospective students back to campus, have you found that they're more eager to come in and try to visit the campus in person, or are some of them still doing it virtually?
The good thing about, I think, the pandemic, the silver lining, so to speak, is that we have learned that there are students who prefer a virtual opportunity. And so I see us continuing to offer things like virtual appointments and virtual live guided tours for students who are requesting that. At the same time, we have plenty of students who have been asking over the last couple of months, when will I get an opportunity to visit campus? So we are certainly seeing some of that pent-up demand, I think, start to play out as we've reintroduced physical campus tours on campus. And I'm looking forward to being able to continue to offer them through the summer, especially when campus looks as nice as it is on my background here.
Right. And again, we should point out that your background is a virtual background, and the picture was taken before the pandemic. I know you were like, wait, they don't have masks on, and we can all appreciate that, but we're so excited to get back to that time where we can be outside and everything is green and blooming and we can walk around without a mask.
Absolutely, yes. We're taking all the safety precautions necessary for the tour. So hopefully students and families will feel comfortable visiting Oakland, especially if they've been hesitant about getting out there into the public. But, again, now that vaccines are becoming more prevalent and we're learning a lot more about how to remain safe in environments like an outdoor campus tour, we're hopeful to see more students come and join us this summer.
We're talking with Shane Lewis. He's the director for undergraduate admissions at Oakland University. And Shane, we know it's been an unusual year and a half for so many students, especially when it comes to testing. And, those dreaded ACT and SAT scores, are they needed right now? Because some students were able to take them, but also we're hearing a lot about learning loss because, it's just been a struggle for so many students right now.
Absolutely. And I think, in higher education in general, we've recognized how difficult this last year has been and may continue to be even for the class that we're seeing for the class of 2022. For those students who are rising seniors just completing their junior year as well. Most of the seniors this year likely have not necessarily had the same opportunities to take those standardized tests that they may have in a typical year. The class of 2020, they were affected toward the end of their senior year. So this has been completely different for this class. And we are doing all that we can to remove barriers for those students to getting to higher education. So Oakland, like many of our peers, have shifted to this test optional admission environment where we are putting more of an emphasis on the grades that they're earning in the high school for admission purposes. And so we are excited at Oakland that we're going to be able to continue offering test optional admission for the fall of 2022, knowing that given the uncertainty we still have surrounding the pandemic and the availability of standardized testing, that we're going to hopefully set students more at ease about what their future college search process is going to look like. We're, again, removing one of those barriers to hopefully that eventual enrollment in higher education, because we understand how important higher education is, I think to students' individual advancement, but also the advancement of students and the state in general, the economic advancement. And so we're hoping that students can see this as a means of getting connected to higher education without that additional barrier in their way.
Have you seen a shift in the type of student that's applying for college right now? Are you maybe getting more local students because of the pandemic?
At Oakland, we do typically enroll the majority of our students actually from the Tri-County area, from Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb counties. And we are seeing that more so, yes, this year for sure. More of these students who I think are going to feel more comfortable staying within the local area, but that's typically always been a draw for Oakland in general. So it's difficult to measure until we really get to the fall and we see how final enrollment will really shake out, how that might impact students who are coming from other areas of the state in terms of their comfort level in moving across the state potentially to live on campus and attend college elsewhere.
Shane Lewis with us here on the Megacast. He's the director of undergraduate admissions for Oakland University. And with that, Shane, students that may be on the, let's say, the late side right now, because we are coming close to graduation, what is the deadline for students that maybe haven't applied just yet? Can they still apply?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think nationally, you see May 1st has been typically that college selection day, that national decision day where we're celebrating the choices that students have made of where to attend in the fall. And I think a lot of that is taking place a lot later this year. And so I would say no student is necessarily too late because this entire process has been turned on its head. And so at Oakland specifically, absolutely, we are still accepting applications. We operate on what we call rolling admission. So we will accept applications up until the start of fall classes. And I think that you'll find, again, at many of our sister institutions, we're trying to remove these barriers to enrollment because we know that the college search process has been impacted so greatly by the pandemic. And so we're trying to support students in the best ways that we can. So specifically at Oakland, yes, absolutely, students can still apply. It's free to apply to Oakland, which is great. Another barrier we're taking out of there.
That is great to know because college applications could get quite pricey. A lot of times it was like $100, $150 to apply. And if you're applying to, 5, 6, 7 different colleges, that adds up. So that's great to hear that you're doing that for the students.
Absolutely. At Oakland, we're what we call a fee-free institution. So at Oakland, students pay just one price, and that's the cost of tuition. Everything is rolled into tuition. So we try to make it, again, as easy a process for students and families as we can. We enroll, about 30% of our new students are first-generation college students. So we know things like the cost of college, how to pay and finance your education can sometimes, again, be another barrier that we're trying to remove for students in terms of getting that knowledge out there and helping them take those next steps to enrollment.
So with that, Shane, what advice do you give to students that are still working on their applications? What can they do or say or put into their application to make them shine?
I would say the number one thing for students to know is that we're still here for them, even though we might be here in a different way. And so though our office is seeing students in person upon request, we still have a lot of virtual opportunities to connect with us as well. And so as students are working through that application process, we're happy to connect with them and walk them through that. And again, we understand that this has been a really challenging time for students in terms of coming to the end of their senior years and kind of grasping the fact that they're on to that next phase in their lives. And we want to do all that we can to support them through that. So whether it's just answering a simple question, getting them connected with other of our campus partners on campus to help them navigate, again, things like financial aid or on-campus housing opportunities, that we're there with them every step of the way. So we're just really excited to kind of help them continue to move forward.
I know last year there was a lot of focus and a lot of talk about students that were taking gap years because they weren't getting the college experience that they wanted or anticipated. So for maybe a student that did take off last year, what advice do you have for them trying to re-enter into college?
Yes, I would say, at least specifically at Oakland, we are trying to get back to as normal a college experience as possible. In the fall, we will be offering as many in-person courses as is safe to do so. We're hoping to get back to essentially pre-pandemic life at OU. And again, I think with the prevalence of the vaccine and other health and safety measures, that we're going to be able to do that. So we're really sharing with students that we're getting back to this, quote unquote, normal experience. And so, we wouldn't necessarily recommend a gap year, but that if students are debating that again, we're always here and happy to kind of walk through them with that process, going through kind of the pros and cons in their personal situation.
Shane Lewis with us here on the Megacast. He's the director of undergraduate admissions at Oakland University. And for the students that maybe did take that gap year, take that experience that you learned through that year and make your application stand out if you've done some incredible things over this past year, which we hope that they have, because we do know sometimes when people take a gap year, they don't always go back to college.
Absolutely. And I think, all students, not only those who have taken a gap year this past year, are going to have learned something that they can bring into the classrooms this fall. We've all gone through completely new experiences this year that will influence the way that we continue to think and learn about ourselves, about the content in the classroom, and how we kind of apply ourselves as human beings going forward. So I think that that's really valuable knowledge that students are going to bring into this experience.
So with that, Shane, are you getting a lot of questions from students as well as their parents about vaccinations? Because we know in a lot of colleges are going to require the vaccination to be back on campus.
We are, and at Oakland, we are going to be requiring the vaccination for students who are choosing to live with us on campus. So as I mentioned before, the majority of our students are really traveling in from the Tri-County area or relatively locally, where they are commuting in back and forth. We only have less than 3,000 students or so who will join us to live on campus. And so though we're not at this time requiring it for all students, we are of that population. So we've gotten quite a few questions about that. And of course, just like with any other thing, if students have medical or religious reasons for a potential exemption, they're able to request that as well.
Shane Lewis with us here on the Megacast from Oakland University. Is enrollment up, down, flat? How do things look right now?
You know, it's still a bit early to get a good sense for fall, and probably more so this year than we would have even seen in a normal time. So as an example, our returning students just started registering for courses last month, and our new freshmen won't start enrolling until they attend orientation this summer. And, you know, I meet fairly regularly with the other directors of admission from the state universities here in Michigan. And I think what most of us are seeing right now is just some delayed activity. And again, I think even more so than we saw last year at this time, when we were really at the start of the pandemic, we had no idea what to expect for the fall. And I think families and students right now seem a bit more hesitant to take action. I think they're probably waiting to see how many of the state regulations might loosen, how vaccination is going to continue to roll out, and really how each of us in the state is going to announce our plans for that course delivery for fall. So in general, I think there's some slight apprehension. I think everyone's really fatigued, and I think a bit more hesitant about learning in that completely remote environment with everything they've experienced this last year, which is why, again, at Oakland, we've been really sharing that we're returning to as many face-to-face classes as possible, resuming what should look like a much more traditional academic year to help families and students understand what to expect and why they should still enroll.
So do you anticipate that you're going to see a larger number of maybe older students also applying? Because we had that big push for frontline workers, as well as some residents that were 25 years and older that maybe didn't have college or to go back and get their associates and to finish. So do you anticipate some of those students are going to now continue their college education and transfer over?
Yes, definitely. And that's our hope. I think that definitely supports the governor's post-secondary attainment goal for the state of Michigan and the post-secondary attainment goal as well for us here in Oakland County. And at Oakland, we established the OU Frontline Workers Scholarship for students who were approved through the Futures for Frontliners program in the state to then transfer over and continue their education at Oakland. So we're very much looking forward to those students transferring over and completing that bachelor's degree.
Because we know sometimes too, transferring classes can get a little tricky and a little confusing.
Absolutely. And at Oakland, actually, we made a significant change over the last year to become now what we believe to be one of the most transfer-friendly policies here in the state, in that we have no limit on the number of transfer credits that students can bring in. And so we're very excited by that they can essentially be honored for all of the past work that they're doing as they transfer into Oakland, working, of course, very closely with our academic advisors to determine that pathway to graduation at that time of their transfer.
Well, for a lot of people paying for their education, that's very attractive, because there was nothing worse than taking a class that wouldn't transfer. So that's great that you're offering that. Shane Lewis with us, Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Oakland University. Shane, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we say goodbye today?
No, I think just in general that, higher education is so important. Again, like I mentioned, I believe it to be truly transformative. From a personal standpoint, I'm a first generation college student. And so I'm a huge proponent for college access. And for any of those students who are still out there debating on what their opportunities might look like for fall, just know that we're all here for you, that we're here to support you in making and taking that next step and getting enrolled for fall. So we hope to see you on campus physically, like this.
A lot of people will be so excited to be back physically as well in their classrooms. So I would anticipate that it's going to be an exciting fall. Things are looking up, right, Shane?
Absolutely. We can't wait.
Well, thank you again, Shane Lewis, Director of Undergraduate Admissions, Oakland University. Of course, you can always find more information just going to the Oakland University website. They have a host of information on their website. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. About 20 minutes left in the show. When we come back, we'll be talking about trying to prevent gun violence. That's next here on the Megacast.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too. Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too. Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Great to have you back with us here on the Megacast. As a reminder, you can always get us, tune us in Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. You can also find us on Channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T, or listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM, The Biff. And we are also live streaming today's edition of the Megacast on our Facebook page, so you can find us there as well. Before we say goodbye today, a very important conversation we want to have, and a very sad one as well. One statistic shows that in 2020, gun violence killed nearly 20,000 Americans. Silver lining in the pandemic, mass shootings went down. However, recently, we've seen way too many. To talk more, let's bring in Dr. Chris Smith. He's a board chairperson for the Michigan Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. Dr. Smith, thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me again.
It's been really sad to see the headlines recently about the mass shootings here in the United States, but I kind of feel as if we become numb to these mass shootings because we've had so many.
I agree. And I had an interesting conversation with actually someone from Oakland County who's with Moms Demand Action, who talked about growing up in Canada and moving to the United States as an adult, and has been here for quite a number of years now. But the shock initially of seeing reports in the news of gun violence deaths with such great regularity, and then detecting in herself starting to become of the kind of numbness where, you know, this becomes so routine that we lose some sense of shock about it. And that really, I think, crystallized my own sense of numbness that maybe I take for granted or don't recognize, to hear that comparative perspective.
So is this the year that the gun laws in America finally change?
I wouldn't bet on it. I mean, the reality is beliefs, strongly held beliefs about guns have now become embedded into the political polarization divide that makes it really difficult for people to even talk about these things, you know, because what we like to encourage is to recognize gun violence is a whole range of issues. And maybe there's some where we really are divided, but there are some things like, shouldn't we look at suicide? Shouldn't we look at safe storage to protect kids, where we ought to be able to cross lines? And yet when people say adopt a view that says any law about guns is just, you know, a foot in the door to take my guns away, it makes it very hard to have discussions. So like right now, in Congress, we have something that's passed the House to strengthen background checks. If you look at, 20 national surveys in the past year and a half, including from Fox News, 83 to 90% of Americans support improved background checks. And yet, right now, there's a chance for that if the Senate can work something out. But beyond that, it's really unclear to me. And even action on that, I'm not certain of.
But when we're talking about, there are so many rules and regulations around gun and gun ownership, and you have to keep in mind there are different federal laws versus local and state as well. But I do know that when we're talking about background checks, those seem to appease America when it comes to situations of mass shootings. But we also know the majority of gun violence is happening because the guns are in the hands of the criminals. And we know that they're not getting a background check. If you're a convicted felon, you can't have a gun and legally buy one. Anyway, so what can be done to try to, stop the string of guns being trafficked to some of our criminals?
I mean, and I know this is an area where you have a lot of knowledge and experience. So, I credit you for that. But it seems to me in thinking about guns, we think of gun violence more broadly because 2/3 of gun deaths are from suicide. So, we want to take a look at that too, which is not about criminal violations. But, I've seen statistics that 22% of firearms transactions are private sales that are outside of the background check sphere. So in some sense, if we're letting those go without even trying to get them under the tent of background checks, then we're not really testing the extent to which background checks may make an improvement. And, we don't argue there's any cure to this, that there's a solution. We're just talking about, can we take some steps that may save some lives?
Yeah, when it comes to securing guns in a home, I'm surprised at the backlash and the pushback on something such as that, especially because right now we have so many kids that are home and home alone because they're, learning remotely. And so they have more access to guns. What is the problem with putting a gun lock on your gun? And we have seen the prosecutor in Wayne County, Kim Worthy, has really started going after parents or owners of guns when kids have been able to get their hands on the guns and either injure themselves or someone else.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, the ones that really capture the news are the little bitty kids who get a hold of a firearm and hurt themselves or hurt their toddler brother. But, we've seen in Ingham County, as you said, when teens aren't in school and they're at home, and the fascination and playing with a firearm or something, that's another one where I just feel as if we ought to be able to have more of a meeting of the minds to say, let's find ways to encourage or pressure or whatever we need to do to have much greater consciousness of safe storage. I mean, I've talked to friends recently who have, say, visited a neighbor or someone's house, and there are loaded handguns lying out on coffee tables and things like that, which, for them, one, a military officer, one, a non-gun owner, was kind of shocking to see this kind of risk out in the open with people coming in and out of the house and having that. So, I mean, I think there is, I don't know, some fear on some people's part that the gun won't be available quickly enough. There is some complacency about it can't happen to me. And yet that's one where I would think we ought to be able to talk more about these things.
And we do know, some guns there's new technology. I think it's down the pipeline where it kind of reads an individual's fingerprint in order for you to be able to pull the trigger. But of course, we know, some of that technology is way down the line. But that could be another way to try to solve, some of these issues with gun violence in America. But it really is, how can we shift this conversation? Because anyone who has been the victim or has known someone or lost someone to gun violence knows you don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, if you think about your cell phone and you have to put in your security PIN in order to make sure you're the one who can use it, and we're all accustomed now to doing that in 2 seconds practically. And, actually that locking technology already exists for firearms, but we had some gun owner organizations, some gun manufacturers, some gun sales organizations that strongly object to that being the law. And I think part of the issue has to do with there's already 400 million firearms that don't have that. And you have the issue of grandfathering in and this fear that weapons are going to be prohibited. New Jersey had initiated a law that said once that technology is available, then the state would require it. And again, in a polarized world, and there was one, gun shop in New Jersey that was starting to gear up to, get the product and sell it. They were getting death threats that they would even contemplate selling a firearm that you could not instantly pull the trigger by picking it up. But I think part of it has to do with people have already invested in existing firearms. It's complicated a bit in that way.
We're talking with Dr. Chris Smith. He is the board chairperson for Michigan Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. We do know that the Supreme Court is going to be looking at the Second Amendment in the fall. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting time for the impact that politics has on determining who's on the Supreme Court. I mean, I always tell my students, because I teach about the Supreme Court, your constitutional rights are in some sense defined by the quirks of fate of who dies, retires, and resigns while some given person is in the White House. And we knew from a year ago, there was a case in New York about transporting firearms, and New York changed its law so that it wasn't as restrictive. So 6 members of the Supreme Court said, we don't need to do this case. But one of those 6 said, I would like to look more closely at the Second Amendment. And 3 other justices said, I would like to look more closely at the Second Amendment, indicating that they thought it should be defined more broadly. And then you get a new appointee, Justice Barrett, replacing Ginsburg, which appears to give 5 justices who would like to expand the definition of the Second Amendment. So the case they have accepted for fall is raising the question of whether it violates the Second Amendment to prevent people from carrying firearms for self-defense outside of their homes. That would not have, if they were to say, yes, there is some right to carry, I don't think that's really going to affect Michigan immediately because we are, a state where it's pretty easy to carry. But the real impact is it's going to unleash new sets of challenges to other kinds of firearms laws, possibly challenging Michigan's laws about where you can carry, and create great uncertainty of how far the expansion of that Second Amendment right might go.
So with that too, we know it's one thing to, try to change the laws, but also educating the people that enforce the laws.
That's very complicated, because, the people historically who taught about the Supreme Court often said, well, now this is the Supreme Court's new decision. And it wasn't till the past 35 or so years that scholars really started to study, hey, wait a minute, the fact the court makes a decision does not instantaneously mean officers are trained in the meaning of the decision, and that they actually have a capacity to enforce it very well. So you're right, there are time lags about education, understanding, et cetera, both for legislative laws and for the Supreme Court's decisions.
Dr. Chris Smith with us here on the Megacast. He's the board chairperson for the Michigan Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. Have you noticed a shift in any of the, support or I don't know if support is the right word, but when we had the January 6th insurrection in DC, have you noticed a shift in how some of the lawmakers now view our gun laws here in America?
Not really. I mean, and this is one of those, I mean, certainly we saw the Michigan Capital Commission act in the immediate aftermath of that to end open carry in the Capitol, which has the effect of removing those military style rifles from being inside the Capitol, even though they can be on Capitol grounds. But one of the challenges, one of the things we don't know is we observe many politicians who vote and publicly speak in terms of keeping the support of their constituents. And it makes it hard to measure whether some of them may actually be having second thoughts, because if anything, that Capitol event showed the danger that legislators could be in. I mean, remember in the Capitol event of January 6th, there was a mass of people coming in there who were not all identical. If you're at a football game, you have a program, you can look up the pictures of who's on your team. There was no program, right? If they went in there, even members of Congress who were sympathetic to their political views were in danger, because many of those people didn't know which one member of Congress from another. But we don't really have a measure of that. I mean, what we've seen is Virginia has acted on gun laws, Colorado has acted on gun laws, but those are places where both chambers of the legislature are aligned with the governor and the governor's views. And that seems to be what it takes in most places to change things. Washington State had a ballot issue a few years ago, and that's a tough way to go with signatures and money. But that was basically funded by a handful of super rich people, including a co-founder of Microsoft, in the aftermath of a teen shooting up a party with an AR-15. So that was unusual, and it also reflects perhaps a more of a blue state orientation that made that happen.
So with that, Dr. Smith, can I ask you, what is next for the Michigan Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence, your organization? What's next? What is on the top of your agenda to try to get changed here in the state?
Well, I mean, our focus and our ability is to try to educate the public and educate policymakers with the hope of having people step back from ideology and think about this in terms of problem solving. But the reality on the ground is that unless and until the governor is aligned with the legislature moving in the same direction on this, it is very difficult to see legislation taking place unless, and one just hates to think this, but if we became the location of one of those really horrific mass shootings, that also can move some people. That shouldn't be the reason we do things. We've seen enough elsewhere. We don't want to have that happen here. But in a way, we're in a little bit of a stalemate, quite frankly. So we have to just keep the issue alive in people's minds, try to educate them more to see there are aspects like suicide, safe storage, et cetera, that are not simply about ideological beliefs about taking people's guns away.
I will say, I really thought after the school shooting of Florida, the kids that came forward were so passionate and so well-spoken in their arguments. At that time, I thought we could get some movement here and get some laws changed. And then it just went away. So with that, just another minute left with you. Are you hopeful? Do you get frustrated?
Oh, I'm frustrated. Every time, look what Prosecutor Worthy's dealing with. Every time a kid hurts another kid that way, I'm frustrated that it didn't have to be. But on the other hand, we know historically that we have to take a little longer term view. And we know that elections come up every 2 years, and every election presents the possibility that we'll get a new mix of people, especially when we have redistricting coming up this time around. It's really unknown where we will end up with our legislatures.
Dr. Chris Smith, board chairperson for the Michigan Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. We always appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you again for being with us.
Well, I'm grateful. And again, I give credit to you because this is an issue that you have a great deal of knowledge about the laws. And we're able, I think, to have a more informative conversation that way.
Well, and we do want to let people know, please, if you are going to have a gun, get a gun lock. They are free. No one asks any questions, but be responsible and save a life. Because I think at the end of the day, that's one thing that all of us can agree upon, is that we don't want more innocent people killed. So with that, Dr. Smith, we always appreciate your time. That's going to wrap it up for the Wednesday edition of the Megacast. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m.